And hello, welcome to another episode of the Science Fiction Affliction. Today's topic is cyberpunk. I'm Jay Oldecamp, your host, and I'm joined today by...
I'm Rye Guy.
I'm Kien. I'm just the counterpurge for Ryan's love of Matrix for this one.
God. Anyway, with the upcoming release of Blade Runner 2049... cyberpunk was the most logical topic to talk about. Anyway, let's get into it. Cyberpunk, the term was coined by Bruce Bethke in 1980, and it didn't really become more popular until William Gibson's novel Neuromancer. That's when the whole cyberpunk genre and anything about it just began to explode and took off from there. Anyway, let's go to The Matrix. And the first Matrix movie came out in 1999. And out of all the Matrix movies, I think that's the best one.
Yeah, it is.
Otherwise,
both of you.
It is, because the second one was okay, and the third one was just like weird and eh.
I like the third one more after rewatching the entire series.
Why do you like it more?
Multiple times and picking up more on the dialogue. Because it explains more about the ending.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't like the whole, like, oh, he made a truce with the machines, why didn't he just destroy them all? But if you rewatch the movie, they make it abundantly clear in the second one through dialogue that basically the machines need the humans to survive, and the humans need the machines to continue growing as a society.
Okay.
So you can't outright destroy them without destroying humanity's chances as a society.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just be real with you. Like I don't particularly hate The Matrix. I hate The Matrix just because Ryan keeps telling me how much he loves The Matrix.
Oh, I love it.
Which is the counterpoint to that. Like, for me, like, again, it is a visually stunning movie, and I do like the first one. I know I give shit about not liking The Matrix a lot. I like the first one for what it is. My thing about The Matrix is that, like, as I take this as like this is my I'm a normal audience goer. I don't read too much in the lore, so I think for me, I think it was too big for its britches when the second movie came out, and then they put out the third movie.
The third one, to point that out there, the second movie came out in May of 2003, and the third one came out in October, which is like about 03 also. Like,
they came out in the same year.
Like that's like three. I think that's really. That's a really ambiguous thing to do.
I think they filmed them around the same time.
Right.
Second and third.
I know, but like when you make that counter, Back to the Future did that same thing, and they
is weird to think about because when you go back and watch the movies, the CG effects in the third one are much better than the second one.
Huh, I need to rewatch the third one. I've watched first and second one. I'm still.
That seems to always happen though. Like mid production, they could have a new sense of technology.
That's true.
And they can't really go. They've already spent like billions of dollars doing the thing. Like, I don't hate the CG. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think most people think, oh, you just hate it because it's bad CG. I don't really hate it because of the bad CG. I just literally think the story is convoluted by the end of it.
It is pretty convoluted.
It does get convoluted,
right?
Like big time, especially with the ending to Revolution's the second one, isn't it?
Yeah. Reloaded is the second one.
Revolution is the third.
Yeah, Revolution's third. The ending to Reloaded was super convoluted with the cartographer. I had to go back and watch that speech so many times to pick up on what he's saying, just because his dialogue moves so quick and he's saying so much in that little time frame.
Right, and see, like with that in mind, like, but this is the staple to me. I believe was the staple of steampunk.
Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk. I like steampunk more than I like cyberpunk, obviously. I don't like them in general, but it was the epitome of cyberpunk. Like, after that, people were wearing black fucking leathers and glasses. And, like, saying they're a hacker. Like, oh, look at me. I broke into my mom's
Aren't you an edgy motherfucker?
Yeah.
There was actually making of the Matrix thing that I was watching.
You delved deep into this, didn't you?
No. That I was watching a while ago, and it talks about how the Matrix did bring like some of that, like basically it brought goth into the mainstream, because you saw scenes in the Matrix where they're in clubs and stuff, and they're all wearing that kind of like skin tight black latex.
Dracula's playing the fucking background.
Yes, that is true.
It really brought that culture out into the mainstream.
Like, for its flaws and later on, but like it had some cool action sequences and like with kung fu. Like that was really neat. You at least would appreciate that, I think, right, Kien?
I don't like wire fu.
I think
I should have had this conversation with Ryan numerous times. I don't have a okay. So with wire fu, I like it's cool looking, but I'm so used to seeing like. I like old school kung fu movies that, I mean, it's awesome that they put it in there. I mean, the Wachowskis really, they respected the art of wire fu. They weren't like, look how outlandish we can be. They like stayed in the parameters of the world they made with it, with the whole walking on walls and shit like that. So they did it really beautifully, and it's an artistic scene. Like, if you break it down as a fight scene, they're really good fight scenes. Like the fight between the fight between Keanu Reeves and Colin Chun's character. I don't even know that.
Neo and...
Well, it was Neo and the Asian dude that was training him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know his name, so it's just like...
Morpheus trained him.
Morpheus... Well,
yeah,
Colin...
The first one he trained him, at least.
Morpheus trained, but then Colin... There was an Asian character that did it.
The second one.
Yeah. See, that scene was really, really good to me. Like, when you break down a fight scene like that, like, it's awesome. Like I said, I like a lot of their stunts. Their stunt work's really good in The Matrix. That is the one thing I will give The Matrix. The one thing that what I always hate is slow-mo, but it makes so much sense within the Matrix universe to have slow motion in it, because it brings more out of it, because they are in a digital world, so they're able to warp that reality comparatively when you use slow-mo in like Watchmen, and you're just there filling extra 5 minutes of a sex scene.
Yes. I don't mind slow-mo in The Matrix. There's a lot of movies where I really hate slow-mo. But I don't... In The Matrix, it's not like gratuitous amounts of slow-mo. Like, there's plenty of fight scenes that don't have any slow motion in them.
Well, most of the slow-mo does involve the bullet time kind of shit, though.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason why it works out. The one thing I will give The Matrix is that it did open up this weird creativity of these independent people being able to bring their ideas out into the mainstream media. As much as I still am weirded out by it. They're not the Wachowski brothers anymore.
No, they're
just the Wachowskis. They created an interesting concept that has been referenced hundreds of times in movies and cinema. So, I mean, sure, there was slow-mo that was used throughout cinema before The Matrix, but I feel like The Matrix was the reason why we have the cool action genre cinema we have now.
Yeah. It was just at the turn of this century, 1999, when the first one came out. So, all of that has not the big impact on cinema today.
Yeah, the bullet time technology that they used to film that stuff, where they just put like hundreds of cameras all around the actor and then just did one continuous shot with all of them and then used that. That became so commonly used in practice in movies after that.
Right, and like I said, I think it's really cool. And I know I liked the final fight between Agent Smith and Neo. I thought it was fun.
That was a fun fight,
that's one of the few parts I enjoy about the third one.
Right, that was like the only part, like one of the only parts I enjoyed of the third one was that final fight sequence. Because there's so much shit that goes on and it's like sporadic.
I think my main problem with the third one is I love me allegory movies. Like, I really enjoy a good allegory movie, but it gets a little too heavy-handed with the allegories in the third one.
Yeah.
Like, when they go to meet, I can't remember his name, the French dude.
Oh, the guy who owns, like, the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name either.
They're walking up to his club, and there's, like, a little button that says help above it, but the P is scratched out, so it's just, like, hell. And then they walk in there and everybody's in black and he's in all black and then has a red tie on and it's just like, we get it, he's the devil. Like,
Moreau Virginian. I can't pronounce his name. Lambert Wilson portrayed him.
Something froggy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think with the convolutedness, I think that is with a lot of science fiction genres, though. When you think about it, like you know, Discovery just came out, and I actually watched the first 2 episodes. It's very convoluted.
I heard it was actually a decent.
It's good. We'll talk
yeah.
about it. We'll talk about it off mic. But that's the thing about science fiction. Science fiction has always been that realm of you can do whatever the fuck you want to make a deep social commentary and.
And I think what did redeem The Matrix a lot was the Animatrix, which came out that year also, that anthology of
yeah, because it was fucking cool.
It was really cool and really good. And talking about convoluted stuff, anyway, the book by Philip K. Dick, well, the novella, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by, again, Philip K. Dick, brought the movie Blade Runner, which released in 1982, which Ridley Scott did make, and there have been 3 cuts of it total, which is the original theatrical cut, director's cut, and then there's the final cut. Also, I guess there was the shortened cut, which was made for television release, but
does it really count as a cut, though?
well, yeah, but it was slimmed down and violence and stuff.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah. But the main 3 official cuts were the theatrical, director's, and then the final cut. And a lot of convoluted stuff with that is mostly with what is most likely. Well, what is the most what you should watch? I don't know, like with the whole Deckard. Is he a synthetic replicant or not? I think that's one of the most convoluted things in that series, or if that the movie in general. Any thoughts, Brian?
I mean, personally, I always watch the final cut whenever I watch Blade Runner.
It is basically the definitive what you should watch.
Yeah. But I don't know. They always leave it ambiguous whether
it is very
Deckard
ambiguous. Yes.
That's an
replicant. Yeah.
replicant.
I was gonna say Cylon. I'm sorry. I was watching Battlestar the other night too.
I mean, I really like that they leave it ambiguous though, and up to the viewer to decide. It just causes more discussion.
Yeah.
Personally, with 2049, the main thing I want to know is like, do replicants like age like that? Because if not, then Deckard totally wasn't a replicant.
Well, I think like there was, and I remember in the movie like if the theory is that he's one of the last generation of replicants that they made that did age normally. Like who was that one chick who was a replicant with him? You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
She's one of the last generation batches. So they
his love interest.
Yeah. So their generation can age like normally at what I guess instead of lasting like the short like 10-year lifespan or whatever, like the other replicants can. And what was I going with this?
Well, my thing about Blade Runner is that like the whole is he Deckard a replicant or not. I would have preferred like I hope they don't really deal with that in this movie. I hope it's another story, in particular that Deckard knows something. Because for me, it kind of destroys the thought. What makes you think about that movie? About like
it is a very thought-provoking movie.
I keep trying to call them Cylons. Are the replicants human because they emote human emotions and things like that? And like because if Deckard is a replicant, what he did was all for nothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? At the end, he
killed his own kind.
Yeah. So like I mean that's where I mean like the social commentary of like. It's nice to have him in the in-between, like you just don't know. You have him as a third-person avatar between the humans and the replicants because the whole purpose of Blade Runner, and I think for me, is that like when life is the countercult subspecies of culture is like, are these people, are they human? Do we treat them the same as the way you want them to? Like I know we made jokes about the sexual robot being molested, but that is a thing that does come in mind, and it's a thing that. In this lifetime, I think we're gonna see. Maybe not right now, you know, because we're in our 20s, but I feel like a century from now there might be a socio-political debate of whether or not robots and people are the same.
I feel like it might even actually be sooner than that, because you see the way that technology is advancing so quick,
right?
And they're able to create
Well, we already have
these-
decent advanced AIs.
Yeah,
Right.
They're getting to the point where they almost could emulate being a human.
Right.
And it's
Well,
getting kind of weird.
You did hear
Yes,
about
it is.
that artificial intelligence story that they put an AI in Twitter and it ended up becoming a fascist, feminist, neo-Nazi?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that, like, you really have to think about is that, like, do you want to make an AI that is able to, like, I'm not saying it like this. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to advance our science, but at the same time, when you think about it like that, should we do that?
Should science go that far?
Should
to
science
where
go
we-
that far is
Yeah.
great. Not a human, but a human-esque person that has thought process and thinking, because there's that new Detroit video game for PS4 about these rogue cyborgs taking over because they think they're people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing you have to get into. Like, Asimov's laws of robots no longer exist in our world.
They
like,
don't really.
They're not gonna. They will harm you.
Mhm.
We make it like they will harm you and things like that. So what you're getting into in this, even with the Matrix, when you think about it, is like, is technology good? Yes.
Mhm.
Is there a point where we should halter technological advances like artificial intelligence?
I think definitely.
Maybe.
I think we should, like, to a point, like, where we should stop, like, this is bad, saying stop, like, that,
But do you
But-
think
but-
that
yeah, but we
might be
should-
the natural run of the human course, though, is that the next subspecies of the human race is something like the Borg and things like... I'm not saying it like this. I'm just bringing up in the cyberpunk aspect of it.
well,
Is because in neuromancers, they're able to link themselves into computers and travel to different things. And it's the same thing with Demolition Man. They like are able to link themselves in this neurotransmitter and then send their thoughts out.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point they have to decide we probably shouldn't do this.
God, I hope so.
if we're smart enough. But if we don't, then the whole possibility of good shit or bad shit. If we don't, like, we could have, like, stuff that way we don't have to go fight in, wars and that. You'll have robots. But I think it's the whole ethical. Like, but what's funny is that the anime that came out
Right.
touched on that a little bit. It was just robots fighting robots, not.
It's the whole ethical debate
Yeah.
because those robots could think.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that you got to think of is that I think there is a difference between a robot and an artificial intelligence because of the term intelligence that's
yes.
in
My bad.
it. If you have sentience, I think that you should technically have a voice in what happens to you, because then it looks like then we're backtracking back to what we were in the 1800s with slavery and things like that.
If they ever do decide to do artificial intelligence, like they find the way to make them be able to process these things, I think we play it safe and just put them in a phone or some shit.
God damn.
Siri, why are you crying? It's just that time of the month. I'm rebooting my systems.
No.
Could you look up images of chocolate?
Siri, why are you looking at Toll House? I'm just so lonely.
Oh,
Well,
shit.
with that in mind, then if you think about it, as weird as it sounds, I do think we're talking about, artificial intelligence. Her is an honest example of modern day cyberpunk, as much as people will argue with me, because it is. It's a science fiction movie with the aspect of Joaquin Phoenix is falling in love with his artificial intelligence that's on his phone. Have you never seen her?
No, I haven't seen her.
He starts
It's very
to develop.
pretentious.
Yeah.
It's like super pretentious.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did.
It's a fucking weird movie.
Yeah, it's a super pretentious movie
Yeah,
too. Like,
where-
it thinks it's one of those movies where it's just like we think we're being really deep.
But they're not. He ends up hiring a girl that sounds like her to have sex with.
Yeah.
So he could be.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, it's not a good. But it is one of those thoughts that we talked about. Is like that is the point where I think AI goes too far. When
Yeah,
you're
it goes too far.
hiring a thing, like even Deus Ex, Human Revolution, I think with Cyberpunk, and this is again just me, this is my personal opinion, Cyberpunk is always convoluted. Deus Ex Human Revolution is a fun game, but that storyline is convoluted as fuck.
Yeah.
With it. It's
I
like,
haven't played, so I...
any game that's based in the future where you're trying to liberate robots and shit like that, is convoluted as shit. Because they're like, see, man, slavery.
Well, I think one of the defining traits of cyberpunk is it usually deals with social issues or political issues, somewhere along that vein.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a very common trait of cyberpunk.
Right.
And
Yes.
along with that territory, it just inherently becomes convoluted. Just
Right.
because that kind of comes with the territory.
Because it's such, well, the idea, like, well, just to point out Blade Runner. Blade Runner was supposed to be set in 2019.
Yeah.
That's the convolutedness of cyberpunk films, is that you can base them off in the future, but they're
it's
never
not gonna be like
right.
that.
It's not going to be like that. Like, I have yet to see flying fucking cars.
I mean, to be fair to
Yeah.
them, in 1982, I'm pretty sure they did think that the future was going to look something like that, like flying cars.
yeah, they,
But
Back
look
to
where
the
we are
Future-
now.
Oh no, they looked at Back to the Future as like, yep, this is definitely gonna be it. And Back to the Future's like, dude, we just want to make the most fucked up future ever that like I know would never happen.
Oh.
But talking about Blade Runner and its world, I find its world to be interesting in itself. It is so, it's not bleak, but
It's just gritty.
colorfully dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
that's
like,
one of my favorite things about cyberpunk is aesthetically, like a defining trait of most cyberpunk movies is that you have this very dirty and grimy world, but it's also very bright and
Yes.
filled with like super bright
fluorescent
colors.
neon lights.
Yeah.
Like that was
I
my
think
thing.
that's a very cool contrast.
It is.
I think that was the reason I liked, like, I don't like the new Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up Ghost in the Shell.
I think
next,
Ghost in the Shell, the movie really brings out what cyberpunk is, the live action movie. If not a retelling of Ghost in the Shell, but a breakdown of good cyberpunk, is that it is gritty and realistic, but
Yes.
there's that neo artism that goes
Neo-noir.
with it.
Mhm.
Well, it's the neo art that goes, like
Okay.
the fluorescent lights and everything like that. Because I think that is a stand testimony of cyberpunk, is that what Ryan said is, it's pretty in its darkness.
Yes. Very
That
much so.
that say you see the countermeasure is steampunk, and the different in where steampunk is supposed to be flamboyant and outlandish and outgoing. Cyberpunk takes the opposite turn, where it's simplistic. Your outfits aren't fucking like, look at all my buttons and zippers and shit. Cyberpunk apparel is like sleek, dark, black,
Yep.
and in your face, and not in your face about it.
And I think that's one of the coolest things about cyberpunk is the different lighting effects you get with cyberpunk. Like we were saying, like in Blade Runner, you have all that really bright neon glow to it.
Yes.
But then in things like Deus Ex, it's a very darkly lit setting, but you have this shade of yellow over
Right.
everything. And then in, like the Matrix, is very brightly lit when they're in the Matrix, and you can see everything really well, and everything looks sleek and nice.
Dark
and
and
there's this
gritty.
hit
It's
of
dark.
green over
Green.
Yeah,
everything.
and it's just dark and gritty in
Yeah.
the real world. My thing I really love about Blade Runner though is that like the neon lights aren't there just because they need lighting. It's there because it's part of the city.
Yeah.
And like even if you're in an apartment building, you can still see a neon sign flashing around. I think that's super interesting to have.
It was.
Like cyberpunk to me it's not my favorite genre per se, but I find when you find a good artist, a good director who's able to take cyberpunk in their way and make it artistic, I love it. That's why I love the anime movie Ghost in the Shell, because it is very it to me, I think it's the way I think you love The Matrix. It's because I love Ghost. I've
Well,
always
the anime Ghost in the Shell, like, it took its time. Like, if there was
Right.
parts in it where it was like a several minute scene where you just goes through the city, it's nothing. You see the
yeah,
city.
and you
and-
just pan the city, and
Yep.
the city, it's beautiful in its disaster because
Yes.
it's a shithole. But the neon lights are things that like catch your mind, and it's like, oh, you know, you think it's pretty, but deep down inside, it's a shitty place. And I think that's a lot of cyberpunk. Like, yes, these bright lights are super pretty, but they're hiding something darker in the world.
Yeah. So, any more thoughts on Blade Runner? Anything else, guys?
I mean, I hope it's good.
Yeah,
from what I've
same.
heard. This is just my theory of it. As long as there's not a lot of Jared Leto, I'll be good.
I don't know. Like, oh, speaking of that reminds me. So, like in the cyberpunk universe, I mean, not in the cyberpunk universe, in the Blade Runner universe, yes. The Tyrell Corporation, which made the replicants before, shut down after some stuff that happens, and then after many petitions and many years later, the Wallace Corporation, which is the corporation that Jared Leto is the head of, starts making synthetics.
Is he a replicant?
No, I don't think he is. He's just
a weird
the CEO or whatever, the guy in charge of it.
It looks like he has some sort of eye
orientation.
Yeah, that's what I was very confused in. I guess I want to end with, like, what did you think when they were talking about wanting to put the Blade Runner universe and the Alien universe together?
I don't know.
I know they had talks about it, but, like, I knew it never came to fruition.
I mean,
I think it would make sense, though.
It does a little bit.
Overall, it really wouldn't bother me. Because
as long as they don't do like a crossover where
as long as there's not a crossover, like they just exist in the same universe,
right?
I'm fine with it.
But my thing about that, just to bring up like artificial intelligence, is that artificial like I think it actually would make a lot more sense instead of them being cyborgs. They are replicants, like David being able to think. Not David. Is it David? David's the weird one who like.
Yeah, David's the one that makes everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that like David does seem very replicant-esque. Like he wants to feel like maybe not feel emotion, but understand how emotions.
He wants to. Yeah, he wants to very much be human as he possibly can.
He's got the Pinocchio effect on him. So
that's his whole drive on why he wants to create
his own life. Yeah.
Is because he wants to be able to create life like.
And then you see Walter, his exact opposite, who is less human because the people were feeling very uncomfortable with the models of David that were very human.
And I feel like there's a lot. I think when you look at like as Covenant may not be a good movie. The cyberpunk aspect within Covenant with artificial intelligence is a good message within it.
Which it's really disappointing that Alien Covenant wasn't better. Because I do, after buying the movie with all like the extra little vignettes and stuff to watch, I like the movie a lot better after watching those.
Because it gives you an explanation.
Yeah, if they would have included those in the movie, it would have made it like a 3.5 hour long movie, but it would have made it a better movie.
Right. See, and that's the thing. I feel like with movies like this that do take its time, we talked about the length of the new Blade Runner movie.
2 hours and 43 minutes long.
I think it's a movie that needs that because if you cut out, unfortunately, as John has always said, I need to piss and shit during the middle of the movie, so it kind of sucks. But I think you need that kind of for movies in this tone.
I think for that kind of story, you need that kind of length because you really cannot tell a political movie in an hour and a half time period.
Unless you're Transformers, so fuck you.
Oh,
but no,
Jesus
like
Christ,
that's the length, and even the original Blade Runner, that was like what 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Let me see here.
I can't remember. I feel like it was shorter than that. Though.
Really? I thought it was at least 2 hours.
Final cut.
I think you need to tell a story that's good enough to. I mean, maybe not
the
good
final
enough.
Cut. Well, I mean, the original one was 1 hour 57 minutes long, and then.
Yeah, see, so it was almost 2 hours. Like that.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like you need it at least to tell that kind of like to, and especially from what like just are not theories, but what to expect with Blade Runner 49. I expect a lot of uncovering of who Decker was during that time.
Like I hope it answers, like, like.
But from what the newer things that I'm looking at, it is eccentric of Ryan Gosling's character finding himself instead of Decker.
Which is nice.
I hope that they don't really hint that Decker's still a replicant, and like they just focus on Ryan Gosling's character finding out the mystery of what's going on.
I'm the opposite. Like I still want to know like what Ryan Gosling is, know what he's doing. But like I hope they do hint that Decker is a replicant. Like I think he's very much a replicant from the final cut. You see the unicorn dream and with the unicorn origami, which means that they know his dreams.
I understand that part 100%, but I feel like for me as a person who enjoyed Blade Runner and like was not expecting them to ever make a sequel for it, I like the ambiguity of it. Like because then like. We don't get these conversations, and we won't get these conversations of anymore if Decker was a replicant or not. and we don't have we don't have not countering opinions, but opinions to whether or not he was and whether or not he is. If they just flat out say in this new movie, "Yep, he's a replicant," that kind of like to me that kind of destroys the purpose of the philosophical debate that people have had for 30 years. I mean, that's just me.
No, it's completely understandable.
Like
it might like take away the impact of what you're saying.
Right, and it like that's for me, where like if it's a good sequel, awesome. If the one thing is not gonna, it's gonna not for personally for me when I watch it, it's gonna knock points off of it if they're like, yep, Harrison Ford's character Deckard, replicant. That to me will knock off points because I've spent time talking about like how I didn't think he was a replicant, and that's just my personal. That would be my personal score for it in the all round. Like it can be a good movie, it can be visually good, it can be all of that, but for me, you take away the philosophical conversation of Blade Runner, you kind of are left with just a neo-noir story. That is a good neo-noir story, but like the impact Blade Runner has put on the media is actually interesting because like a lot of people don't like when people do parody episodes of it. Not a lot of people remember that it's Blade Runner. Case in point, American Dad creates clones that end up. Stan has to kill them wearing Decker's trench coat and a modified clone killing pistol
that
looks like the pistols from Blade Runner. And the high school prom is post-apocalyptic cyberpunk.
Jesus Christ.
And they're running through the prom like exact chase scene from Blade Runner.
That's pretty great. Not
It
gonna lie.
is fucking smart. And so, Blade Runner, a lot of cyberpunk, Matrix has made an impact, like we were talking about. That anyone who knows the slow motion fight scenes, they're parodying the Matrix. So cyberpunk is an impactful thing. They're very subtly impactful though.
Yes.
They're not like whatchamacallit. They're not balls to the walls out there.
I don't think it'd knock off points for me if they revealed what Deckard is. I think what they should do is kind of answer what Deckard is, but in the process of doing that, raise more questions about him.
Yeah, I think it would raise a lot more questions. Like, if he is a replicant, then like, what is he doing? Like, why did he go? Like, well, I can see why he went to seclusion, to avoid being killed. But like, why? What has he done? And hopefully, 2049 will answer that, along with all the other questions of what's been happening in the past several years, whatnot. You have any more thoughts, Ryan, on cyberpunk in general? How about that?
On cyberpunk in general, not really. Just that it's probably my favorite genre as sci-fi.
Yeah,
really enjoy cyberpunk.
It is a really good genre of sci-fi. Well, if there's no more thoughts, anyway, I'm Jay Oldenkamp, and this is
I'm Rye Guy.
Please like, subscribe, and share. We are on Facebook, Podbean, and YouTube, the Rochambeau Network. See ya.